Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today is the 16th of February 2022. I wanted to provide a quick update on the status of play for some of the key indices and stocks at the moment. Today's a big day. We've had the retail sales in earlier today, which came in very hot compared to expectations, and we've seen the market selling off in expectations that the rate hike for March is very probable. But we also have the Fed minutes coming later today as well, so we're very much in a standoff at the moment, waiting for the Fed minutes to be released to see what direction we see for the rest of today's trading day. I've got the SPY, the SPY, which is the S&P ETF. Some of the key things that I'm looking for at the moment, we're in and amongst a major correction at the moment. So we saw a 12.5% almost correction earlier in the year, where we bottomed on the 24th of January. And that correction is not over, in my opinion. I am seeing very much a sideways to downwards move for the rest of this year, possibly even going into next year, spanning about 18 months, maybe even going as far as 2 years. So just be wary that we're not in the long-term uptrend that we've seen since the pandemic hit. We are still in an uptrend, but there is going to be sideways to downwards action for a considerable amount of time. So expect lots of volatility and lots of choppy action. So in terms of what I'm looking at in the near term, I've got key resistance levels. We've got this trend line here, this gray line here. So that's minor at this stage. We've broken this. This is actually a weekly level. So if you're looking to this line here, you're sort of looking at least the daily level to break above or below, and possibly really looking at the weekly level on this. So you can see it's acted very well in terms of support here a few days ago, and also as resistance not too long ago. And you can see it was resistance earlier back in October of 21. We also have a couple of weekly levels here, 453.42 and 448.92. I do think that this level here will be reached, possibly even pierced this week. It doesn't look very likely at the moment, but you never know what happens when the Fed minutes get released. This level here is possibly less likely, but that's a major level there. On the downside, in terms of support, we've got the 61.8% retracement level here. To be honest, I think this is very minor at the moment. We've come very close to tagging that already earlier in the week, and on the futures, we actually hit the 618 retracement already. So I think this is very much minor, and this will break. So the next level we have is this level here, the 428.64, and then we have a couple of minor levels down here in the 422 range, which we might get a double bottom, or not far off a double bottom. We could even pierce the double bottom in the near term, and we might get a bounce back off that. But if these levels here break, the next level down, there are some likelihood that you'll see some bounces along the way. But the major line I've got is this trend line here, currently sitting at around 39, let's say 391. That level could pierce, but depending on the volatility and how quickly it gets there, it could just get a very quick bounce. And I don't expect markets to correct further than that, at least not in the near term. So you're looking at about an 18.5% correction, and that could well be the lows for this major correction that we're seeing. We could even see a double bottom or even a slightly lower move later in the year, but for now, I don't expect to see anything lower than that. If we take a look at if I go back to the SPY, on the short term, we've got this line here, this key pivot, and you can see it's been holding fairly well yesterday. We've been below it all day today. So this line for me in the very short term is very pivotal. This will kind of dictate where the market is heading. But you can see we're in a consolidation mode right now, waiting for the Fed minutes, and we'll know shortly which way it wants to break. And that may not be until tomorrow. Often you'll get a knee-jerk reaction today, and then the markets will decide overnight or tomorrow what they want to do. Going to the QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ. This is the NASDAQ ETF. So we've got a few things here. The Fib retracement really is irrelevant at this point. That's going to, none of these levels are going to hold. You've got this trend line here. We could see a move back up to that at some point. I'm not expecting it in the near term, but we could see that. But the major levels that I've got in terms of support are at the 342 and then the 338 down here. And similarly to the S&P, the SPY, we've got this big trend line here. And I think that this should contain any downside action. And that's around a 24.5, almost 25% fall from the highs. Now, the NASDAQ has been weaker, and this is really all around moving out of high-risk tech stocks and into more safer assets, assets that are not overvalued. If you look at a lot of the stocks in the NASDAQ, they are very much overvalued, especially stocks like Amazon, Tesla, Netflix. And you've already seen big falls in some of these stocks, but Apple for me is a big one, and I'll come to Apple in a little while. But as soon as we see some major down breaks of key support levels, you're going to see much more downside to the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ has been weaker. It is likely to actually bottom earlier than the S&P and the Dow. Eventually, I'm talking much longer in the future, possibly March, possibly end of this month, but even when we look at later in the year. But for now, we should see everything being contained to the downside around this trend line if it gets there. On the Dow, we have two key areas. We've got this 35,600 area, and then we've got the 33,250 area. This could get a bounce at double bottom here. And then after that, we've got this trend line down here. Now, this could pierce, but the Dow has been holding up very well. And unless if there's a big change in the attitude towards risk, the Dow should hold up fairly well. But if money starts to flow back into the tech stocks, then the Dow will likely see some downward action. So the next thing I wanted to look at was Bitcoin. Bitcoin, so just a couple of things I wanted to mention, actually. I have got a short on the S&P 500 on the futures, actually, which I think I entered on this day, on the 10th of February, right very close to the highs, and I've actually got a stop in place at around I think it's around 475 area, something like that, but on the futures. So I think it's I haven't got the futures up here, but it's at around let's have a look. Yeah, so it's at I was entered the futures at 4,573, and I've got a stop in at around 4,555 at the moment. Similarly, on the NASDAQ, I entered a short a few days ago, and I think it was around here somewhere, 364. So I've got a stop actually above the highs of this. The only reason I haven't got a breaking even stop or a stop in the money on this is just because I want to give it a little bit more breathing space. It is weaker, it shouldn't get there, but I just wanted to give it enough room because of markets are very volatile, and I'm seeing a lot more downside action on the NASDAQ. So coming back to Bitcoin, Bitcoin came into my level here, and I did enter a long trade I think I entered actually just above this line, because the Bitcoin is excellent when it comes to technical trading. It really works very well on horizontal and trend line support and resistance levels. And I actually went in just above this. This is a major line. This is a weekly, possibly even a monthly line. So I went in slightly above this. And this was the key area here. I haven't actually got the 20 moving average here, but the 20 daily moving average sat right around here as well. And you've got this big trend line here. It's now above this, and as soon as it broke through, you can see it had a massive up day. And I am not expecting this to make a new lows. It could retest this trend line here, but it is holding up very well. And if you look at all of the other cryptocurrencies, they are underperforming currently versus Bitcoin. And at some point in the next few weeks, I do expect the other cryptocurrencies to start performing much better as well. One of the key things to look out for is Ethereum. And once Ethereum starts to go and starts to lead Bitcoin, you're going to see this Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies really start to fly. But Ethereum really is one of the key things to look out for at the moment. But this is a bit of a minor support area here. So is this one, sorry, resistance area. So is this one here. But this could contain a move for now. But really, the big trend line that I'm watching is this one here, which goes back quite some time. But this is the one that I'm looking at right now to contain any upside. But as I said, we could see a move back to this trend line here. But really, I think Bitcoin is holding up extremely well, and I'm not seeing it go down any further in terms of really going beyond this or even getting back to this line. So I'm actually going to be looking for a good retracement of this current move before entering a second long position. The final thing I wanted to look at was Apple. As I said, I think Apple is really pivotal here. It's held up extremely well. It's not massively off its all-time highs compared to a lot of the other tech stocks that have fallen considerably, especially the likes of Facebook. Facebook, just a quick note on Facebook, it has fallen considerably. I think it's down about 40% on the year, maybe even more, and it's continuing to fall even today. Now, my view on Facebook is they have seen a big change in their fundamentals from ad revenues, especially because of what changes Apple have made in terms of the privacy settings. But from my point of view, they are going to be one of the leaders in the meta universe, which is obviously why they've renamed and rebranded. But in that respect, I think what's happening is the big trading institutions have seen this as a great way to sell Facebook into that news and get everyone selling out of Facebook, or Meta as it's now called. And this really is the best buying opportunity for Facebook or Meta to lead into that extremely high growth that is likely to come from the Meta universe. So a great stock to be investing in at these lows that we're seeing. But in terms of Apple, we really need to break this line here, this 168.34, to see some major downside on the daily level. You can see how many times it's tested it and it didn't break, and then eventually it did break, but it's now recaptured that and opened up below this the other day, which is really funny because I was watching that, and I'm sure a lot of people were probably shorting, unfortunately, and you can see that that hasn't been very profitable so far. Now this trend line here is minor. This could easily break. I'm not expecting it to necessarily go much higher than that. Good. But if we look on the 60-minute, there's two key things that I'm watching. You've got this trend line here, which I think will contain any moves to the upside. So this is good resistance and potentially good for watching as options to short. But this line here is the main thing that I'm watching. You can see yesterday's trading, it opened just above it and wasn't able to close below it on the 60-minute. And today it opened above it and has so far closed firmly above that so far on the 60-minute. Now this is what I am watching. But just remember, this is a 60-minute chart. You really want to see some validation of breakage of that, not just a single candle, but a couple of candles with low closes. And if you can get a close and then a retracement to that, that could be a good possible short, but you need to watch other factors as well. You can't just rely on a single factor to enter a trade for a short or a long position. But a solid break below this, and also a break below the daily here, would signal some potential good short selling on Apple, and as I said earlier, a break lower in the QQQ, the Nasdaq as well. So hope that's given you some good insights into what I'm expecting coming soon in the markets. Like I said, I do expect lower lows than what we've seen already on all of both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, and also ultimately in the Dow as well. So thanks for joining me, and hope to see you soon on Trader Technicals.